G'day everyone. Just thought I'd pop in and have a different discussion with you all today. One of the things that I've been noticing an awful lot online is the amount of basically pixel peepers that are talking about if an image is perfectly exposed, if the quality's perfect, if there's no, there can't be noise in it, other things. And I'm really starting to see this get a little bit out of hand in the fact that I really am a believer that photography is art and it should be art based. One of the differences between, I believe, you getting work or not getting work is if your work sells itself. Unfortunately, pixel peepers as such usually are more technical and they're more technicians in the way that they work and they're not artists. And I do believe personally, some of you may disagree with me, but I do believe personally that if you produce artwork that is going to move your clients, it is going to sell no matter what the image looks like. And I'm talking about whether the image is perfectly in focus, whether it's a little bit noisy, whether it's a little bit underexposed or overexposed. What I'm trying to say to you is it's the message that counts here. It's not the actual image being perfect. And there's now becoming so many pixel peepers in the industry that they start to break everything apart. You can see that when a new camera is released, immediately all the pixel peepers start to try and pull the camera apart. They don't realise that really it's not about that. It's about what type of image you can capture with that. Now, in no way am I saying that you shouldn't go out and buy new gear, because you should, and it does help you. For instance, I've said before that the Sony A9 is the best camera that I've ever used, and it has helped me to get amazing results. With things like focus and things like that. But does it still get every image I want to get? No, it doesn't. I still use some images that I get when I look back at them over the wedding, and I've used ones that aren't technically perfect because of the message that they actually send. So what I want to do is I'm going to take you through a few images, and I'll just talk about why they're not perfectly done or exposed, or what could be wrong with them, or even when you talk about that you must buy the best lenses to get the best results. So I wanted to talk to you about that as well, because I really believe we have to move away from all this pixel peeping and go more to being artists. And if you do that, your business is going to succeed. My weddings are already pretty well booked out for 2019, and I've also got quite a number of weddings already booked for 2020 already. I have enough work in model shoots that I'm doing, and unlike most YouTubers out there, I don't pay for my models. They pay me to do the shoots. So all the shoots that you see are actually paid shoots. I'm not sponsored by anyone, so I'm just talking to you from the heart about where I think you should go if you really want to make your business succeed. Anyway, let's start to go through some images. And remember too, I do like to give the best results that I can, but sometimes when I look at the image and I'm looking at the location, we have to decide, am I happy enough to shoot in that location and get the image? So I'm going to take you through a few images in here that we can look at. Now, this one here, you always hear people say, don't shoot in model light. Well, the couple asked me, they really wanted to get a photograph in front of this door. So that was more important to me than basically having to deal with the model light that you can sort of see if you look through. It's got the modelliness all coming through everywhere through here. So there's no way that you can really expose for this to get rid of that modelly look. What I did make sure was that the bride at least was looking away from that modelly look, because I definitely didn't want to have that on the face of the bride. And this was pretty well midday. You can see by the shadows down here that you're dealing with light that's midday here. And basically all I've done is I've exposed for the highlights to make sure that I didn't lose all of this detail in the dress and things like that. And then I'm quite happy with this image. Now, is it perfect? No, it's not, because like I said, you're dealing with harsh shadows, you're dealing with harsh light here. But in this situation, like I said, they wanted to use that door, and they adored this photo when I actually gave it to them. And again, this is sort of showing you that, you don't need to just follow those rules of never working in dapple light and things like that. Let's look at the second image, because I'm going to go through these fairly quick because there's a few that I want to discuss with you. This one here, basically what it was again, you can see that it's incredibly harsh light, and I just had this idea just to have the bride close her eyes and look up into the sun, which you can see setting off over in this sort of area here, and causing the light beam to come down. And you also have these reflections coming through from the lens as well. This is using the 16 to 35. Again, you hear this all the time. People say you shouldn't be using wide angle lens for portraits, but I did want to show a little bit of environment around here. And some people will look at this and say, well, you know, it's a little bit too dark in the shadows, and this is what people will say. Again, I've exposed for the highlights because that's what I wanted to do, and I've tried to pull the shadows out in the end. But I love the way that this image looks. And again, remember, this is art. This is all a personal thing that you have to decide yourself whether you like the way it looks or whether you don't like the way it looks. You know, do you like the lens flare that's coming in? And again, like I've said to you, the bride loved this photo as well. It was so bright that I did ask her to close her eyes. I had to underexpose here because it was in incredibly bright sunlight, and I underexposed the shot. That's why it's 2,000th of a second here. And again, like I said, I'm using a wide angle lens. Again, like I said, it's all based on art. Some people will like it, some people won't. But remember, all that really matters is if your client likes what you're actually showing them. Let's go to the next one. This was another image that I actually shot of Casey. Again, the thing to note here was that this was shot with my A6500. And the interesting thing here was I normally wouldn't take this shot with an A6500 because basically, you know, you can get noise and things like that coming through. But also this was shot with a 24mm 1.8. The reason why I shot this was with the A6500 was I was doing video at the same time here, and I saw that location that was there, that the sun was just coming through the window, as you can see, and so I grabbed it immediately. I said, quickly sit there before it disappeared, because it was quite a cloudy day and I knew those beams were going to disappear. So basically, I asked her to sit down. So you can see that it's 100th of a second f4, ISO 1250, and I've shot it at the with a 24mm 1.8 ZA. So again, when people say that you can't use something like the A6500, I actually thought when I shot this it was with the A7R, but it wasn't when I went through the files. So it just shows you the type of results that you can get dealing with APS-C type cameras. So don't believe that you can't do that. That camera is more than capable of getting amazing results. Let's continue through here in the next image. I put this one in deliberately to show you that people talk about saying not using wide angle lenses because they can distort bodies. I wanted that effect here as well, and they adored this photo as well. I just laid on the ground, put an on-camera flash on, which is what they say you shouldn't be using, and basically asked them all to lean in together and then exposed away. And even though it's a wide angle, I think that helps with it. So again, it's sort of breaking those rules and basing it more on art and just getting the shot and the emotion of the day. So it's another important one again. Now you can see why I believe this isn't perfect is because I'm using the on-camera flash. You can see it's giving very harsh shadows on some of the areas that are there. But is that bothering me? No, it's not, because it's all about the emotion of getting the shot. So that's the important thing here for me. This was another one that I took of Casey and her husband. They wanted to have a shot with their car, so I took this. Now, when I show this, I don't think this is anywhere near perfect because I think the depth of field is probably too much. I'd like the background to be a little bit blurred and out. So that's why I'm saying I don't think this is a perfect image of what I'd normally like. And also I think I probably could have toned the flash down on the couple because I think they're a little bit hot. But again, does that worry the couple? No, it doesn't worry them at all. Like, they also adored this image. And that's the thing for me, that when I'm selling these type of things, it really is just about the emotion that you capture on the image at the time. So is it a perfect image? No, it's not. It could be exposed, definitely be exposed better. And I probably could have used a shallower depth of field to blur out that background a little bit as well. But again, I'm really happy with how the image came out and the look, the way the couple are holding their hands together, the kiss that they're giving is just lovely. So again, it's more about the art. This one here I just wanted to put in because I thought a lot of people would see this image and they may hate it. I actually love it. I love the white space that's in this image. I love the way that the groom there is sort of nervously waiting for the bride to come and meet him for a first look. And this is a very unusual thing for us in Australia because we don't do first looks at all. Again, the boys in the background could have been retouched out, but they don't bother me at all because it's just part of the scene. So I'm quite happy and comfortable with leaving them in. And again, she loved this image. And I think the emotion there in itself is really beautiful. And that, to me, like I said, is more important than having everything technically correct. The horizon, like I said, I've cropped this where it's dead center, where normally you wouldn't do that. You'd use rules of thirds. But I think in this case it actually helps the image and it looks really nice with it. Again, I'd love to see what your opinions are. Put some comments down below to let me know what you think about this as well. This was another one that I shot on the same day. I deliberately overexposed for this to blow out the background and give a really high key look to this image. Again, some people are going to say they don't like the white space. They're going to say that Sophie is overexposed, but I wanted that type of look with this. And you can still see though that I have kept the detail in the actual image. So the detail is still there. So I'm quite comfortable. The only thing that's happened basically here is that I have lost the shadow end in the image, and am I happy with it? Yes, I am, and that's like I said, the most important thing for me. Now, this one here was shot with in front of this Grand Hotel, which was what they asked me to do. Now, I had to get back far enough that I could get the whole hotel in, and therefore I had to have the road. So I couldn't really shoot this any better than what I did because I was trying to hold the camera straight, which is what you have to when you're using wide angle. This was shot at 17mm, but I knew that when I got into post later on, I could use the lens calibration features and also Photoshop to pull out the sides, and the resulting image, this has not had a fake sky put in or anything like that, but that's the resulting image that I've got here. So, if you're worried about when you're taking your shots, you have to think about the shots later on. And again, was that perfectly done? No, it's not, but I knew that I could get a really quite good image in the end. And again, even here, the building could be altered a little bit, but I was happy with how that came out. I'm happy with how the couple stood out there. And again, I'm really happy with the actual image. And another thing that I wanted to talk to you about is emotion. And this is the type of thing that, that when I'm dealing with, the technicalities don't matter that much. It's more about capturing that moment in the image. And this was just a second where the bride and her daughter were just having a bit of time together to chat, and I just said throw the veil over both of you, and they just kept talking, and I just fired away, and I'm really happy with it. Again, I've exposed this a little bit on the hotter side, but I've still kept all the detail in the highlights. But again, it's had parts of the shadows pulled away to give it that nice feel that I was after. So is it technically perfectly correct? No, it's not. But really, for me, this is all about the emotion between the daughter and the bride, and I just adore it. And talking about lenses, this is where I wanted to sort of speak to you about do you have to go out and get GM lenses or really expensive lenses? And no, this was shot with the Batis, so that's still not a cheap lens. But the Batis and the Sony 85 1.8 give basically the exact same look. So again, this is why I'm trying to say to you, you don't need to have this ultimate equipment or gear to get beautiful results. It's all about the contact you have with the bride or your talent, and exposing correctly, and basically getting that right in the first place. And like I said, this was shot with just the Batis, and again, it was shot with, I think, with the A7R2, this one. But again, it's more about the contact that you have with the bride. So you don't need to go out and get a Batis lens to get this beautiful separation, that you're dealing with through here. That's all out of focus, and it's really important to understand that. And it really annoys me sometimes where people, especially pixel peepers, are always saying that you've got to go out and get the best lenses that are out there. It's tack sharp, and that's the most important thing, that when you're dealing with this, that you're dealing with getting it sharp. And like I said, you'll get the same result with using something like the Sony 85 1.8. And again, I put this next image in just to show you again, it's a similar thing. Is this technically perfect? Well, no, it's not, because some people would say to me, yes, David, but you've got quite a harsh shadow coming in through here. And again, that doesn't bother me at all. It's not about being technically perfectly correct in every image that I do. It's about the look, the contact that she has with me in the eye. Again, this was shot with the Batis 85. You'd get the same result with the Sony 85. And to me, it's more about having that connection and just getting the image that you want. And it can be a little bit noisy sometimes, but it's just gorgeous the way I look at this and how sharp it is. And I'm really happy with the results. Like I said, does that shadow worry me? No, it doesn't worry me one little bit. Another one here is saying how you can't use the wide-angle lenses to shoot portraits. And again, I just shot this because I wanted to have the bride sitting down. It was done with basically, this was the first image that I did, which was the 85, and then I moved to a wide-angle lens and shot her with a wide angle so I could get a whole picture of the dress. The important thing to remember here is to have her centered in the middle of the lens to stop distortion. But again, I'm just trying to say to you that you can use the wide-angle lenses here to get lovely looking images without that distortion there. And this was shot with the 16-35 f4 version, so again, it's not using the Batis, the GM version I should say. This next image was talking about, I want to sort of mention about being slightly out of focus. She is a little bit out of focus if you look there. It's not perfectly sharp. Again, does that bother me? No, but immediately a pixel people will be in there saying it's not sharp. Is it sharp? Is it sharp? And they'll be saying, no, it's not. And that's not what that's about for me. It's about capturing that moment. And again, she's really happy with that image. I love the way she's looking down. There was other images that I had which were perfectly tack sharp, but I just love the feeling in this image in the first place. And that's what's more important to me. This image here, for instance, again, you would think it's not technically perfect because the whole bridal party are going crazy here, and this bridesmaid here, you can't even see her face. You can't even see the groomsman's face. Now, does that bother me? No, because look at how happy they are in this image. Again, I would probably just crop the top off and I'd do it like that to get rid of this, but the image that I supplied to them, they absolutely adored this image because it's natural, it's fun. So, you don't have to always pose people in certain poses and things like that. Shoot more journalistic in some of your shooting. Get outside of that box and start to sort of give this to your clients where they'll see that there's something a little bit different. So technically it's not perfect, but you know what? Who cares, because they absolutely adore it. This next image was in an incredibly dark room, and I shot this under fluorescent light in this room. So really, this shouldn't have worked, but it did work, and that's the thing I'm trying to say to you. And some will say, yes, but you've lost all the detail down in here, that there's not much separation in the groom's suit here. You've lost a little bit of separation at the back. Like, I could have spent a lot more time getting this right, but I had no time to do this. I had 5 minutes to get this shot to work, and so I worked very, very fast on this shot. So technically it's not perfect, but I adore this image. I love how this image looks. I'm really happy with how it came out. I love the connection between the bride and the groom. I love the tones that this is given. And again, like I said, to me, it's more about art than it is about having something technically perfect. This is another one where we're talking about dapple light. And I did use a flash here in the front to try and fill in a little bit because it was quite extreme. But again, I had no choice here because this was the only place that we could put the cars, and the bride wanted to have the cars in the background. So there was no option. And you can see that, she is in quite dapple light, and I've just tried to make this as good as I actually could. There's even people in the background because the crowd was all mingling straight after the reception, so there was nothing that I could do about that either. And it was basically in midday, so I had to try and combat that problem as well. And again, so is this technically perfect? No, it's not. But again, I'm happy to submit this to the bride and groom because of what it's offering them, the contact that they're actually having together here, that it's showing the cars nicely and things like that. So, it's just an important thing to try and remember. This was another image that I've done, and technically it's not perfect because the focus just missed a little bit, so it's not perfectly correct. But again, I just adore this image. I love the interaction of everyone looking at each other. I don't even mind, even though it's quite busy with all of the light posts at the background. There's nothing you could do about that apart from retouching it out. But again, I just adore the interaction here. This next image, again, I actually think what's happened here, the focus has got onto the background here somewhere, which is perfectly in focus. So the bride and groom are a little bit out of focus on this shot. And again, does it bother me? No, it doesn't. And the bride and groom love this image. So again, it's sort of showing you that you don't have to be so technically correct in every single thing you do. And that's the important thing to remember, guys, about this, that it's more about the emotion and art than it is about the technicalities. This is another image that I've done, and I really like this image. And some people would say, yes, but you focus more on the veil than you have on the eye. And that was a conscious decision that I made here, but I love that softness that adds onto this. I could have gone to the eye, but I don't think it needs to be. And again, remember, it's all very subjective about what you want to do. The next image was this one that I actually photographed the other day. I did this image, and it was in this very, very dark room with just the light that was overhead. And what I've done here is I've actually exposed for those for these highlights, and I've had Kerry stand behind the couple to just try and add a little bit of separation into the background, and I've let the shadows deliberately go to add fill. Now, I technically could have had a flash on the front. I tried that, and it just didn't work because it spoiled the whole ambience. Even reducing the flash right down, it still reduced the whole ambience of that shot. So basically, all I did was I exposed for that, knowing that I could pull up the shadows later on. So again, is this technically perfect? No, it's not. But once I went to the retouch version of this, I'm really happy with how this came out. And I think the feeling in this photo is beautiful, what the couple have got here. And I adore this photo, even though there's noise in it. And I even added a fraction more noise in it to give that even more of a sort of vintagey feel. But again, you can sort of see in this that what I'm dealing with from the beginning there to what I've got when I'm retouched, I'm really happy with it. So is it technically perfect? No, but it's more about the bride and groom's kiss and their contact to each other in this image than it is about having perfection. This next one, I had to shoot this. It was over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. It was really hot. Incredibly hot, so I had to move very, very fast. It was that hot that the actual violins, the harp strings were actually starting to move out of tune. So I deliberately took this very, very fast. I had the pro photo actually on the ground because we had to move really quickly and get them out of here. So I deliberately exposed here way under, and then knowing that I could bring this back later on. And some people have said, oh yes, but you could have had high-speed sync on this. The problem when you use high-speed sync sometimes is you will never get a low depth of field, and that's what I was aiming to do when I actually got this image, was to show the background blurred out. And I've used 1/32,000th of a second to get that at f2.2. I could have used high-speed sync, and I had the ability to do that, but it would have been a total different look. And remember, this, like I said again, is an artistic choice about which way I wanted to go. I'm not at all upset about how this looks and how they look compared to the background. It's very soft. I really like that. When you start to get more into high-speed sync, it can have a very flashy look. Even if you still expose correctly, it's not going to look the same as if you're using natural light. And I use high-speed sync a lot. And like I said again, that was my personal decision about that I wanted to do it that way. This was another one that I wanted to show you. I only had a second to grab this, and I immediately saw that she was looking down. They were both looking at each other, so I snapped the image off, and you can see that the focus has just missed a little bit on the face up there. And again, that doesn't bother me at all, because so is it technically perfect? No, it's not. But again, it's more about the moment here than it is about that technicality of being perfectly in focus, perfectly sharp. It's more about the image. The last one I wanted to show you too is even this one that I posted the other day, and they adore this, the couple. Again, it's not perfect because they're not posed perfectly. It's just a natural, spontaneous moment that I've grabbed that, again, is more about capturing a moment for this couple that they really wanted. And I just wanted to sort of go through some of those for you. What I'm trying to say to you here is that you need to get outside of this business of trying to be technical. Remember, photography should be art, and that's the way you should be thinking. If you're dealing as a pixel peeper, and that's fine if you want to do that, but most pixel peepers that I've ever seen are more technicians than they are with artist sides. And that's what you have to consider about which way do you want to be. Do you want to be known as an artist, or do you want to be known as a technician? And I'm telling you that you will get more work if you are known as an artist than if you're known as a technician. And that's all I want to say to you now. So anyway, leave some comments down below what you think about this discussion. I'd love to know what you actually think about it. And I'll see you all again soon for the next video. So bye for now.